There is a famous expression in English, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. We are all getting tough, aren't we? Well, the current situation of COVID-19 has taken us through the classic curve of change. We all have been in a state of shock, followed by resistance to the change, then exploration of finding new ways of adapting with this change, and finally, we are showing acceptance to live with this new reality. I'm Dr. Raina Raj, Head of Marketing, Natural Remedies Private Limited. I would be the moderator for this webinar. We are all really thankful to all of you for taking your precious time to join this webinar. This webinar is presented to you by Natural Remedies Private Limited. Our journey started way back in 1950s. Our founder, Mr. Ramlal Agarwal, was a renowned expert in identification and collection of herbs. He was fascinated by the ancient Indian system of Ayurvedic medicine. This legacy was continued by his son, Mr. R.K. Agarwal, by setting up a small-scale research and development facility in Bangalore, in India, in 1970. As our business started expanding, it fostered the need for a bigger and better research facility. In 1996, our existing R&D center got transformed into a best-in-class facility with modern technology and latest laboratory instruments. Currently, under the eminent leadership of our MD and CEO, Mr. Anurag Agarwal, and our Director Commercial, Mr. K. Narendra Reddy, Natural Remedies has become India's #1 herbal animal healthcare company. Our products are being used in more than 30 countries worldwide. We are very proud to say that we are a local organization in India, which has become a global brand now. Thank you for being vocal for local. Natural is Future is a webinar series in which we will try to provide solutions to your daily problems related to animal farming. We have with us today Dr. Sudipto Haldar. Dr. Sudipto Haldar is the Director of Research and Development Wing of AgriVet Consultancy Private Limited, a Kolkata-based organization which provides research and nutritional consultancy to its partners worldwide. He is a veterinarian with Masters and PhD in animal nutrition with total 18 years of experience in our industry. Dr. Haldar is also the author of 70 peer-reviewed and popular articles based on his researches in the field of animal health and nutrition. A warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you very much.
To make this webinar interactive, there are options for chat, questions, and polls on your screen. If you're using a laptop or a desktop, you can see these options on the right side of your screen. If you're using a mobile phone, you can see these options if you scroll down. If you want to introduce yourselves or give any suggestions, please use the chat option. If you want to ask questions, please use the questions option. I would like to repeat. If you are using a laptop or a desktop, you can see the chat, questions, and poll options on the right side of your screen. If you're using a mobile phone, you can see these options if you scroll down. If you want to introduce yourself or give any suggestions, please use the chat option. If you want to ask questions, please use the questions option. You can ask your questions anytime during the webinar, and we would be really happy to answer all of your questions during this webinar or through your email at the later time. Today, Dr. Sudipto Haldar would be enlightening us about how to optimize poultry production during COVID-19 era. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rana.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you once again, Dr. Raina, for giving me this opportunity to discuss a very pertinent issue that is haunting everybody in the present day. This COVID-19 pandemic, a situation that has emerged in the last 6 months, we perhaps could not even think of in our nightmare that such a situation will come, and we have to face this sort of situation in our life forever. This is really a messy situation that we are going through, and we are really sometimes we feel sort of heartbroken that what is going to happen, what will be our future. Perhaps we are all finished now. Probably that may not be the actual situation that we are thinking about. Yes, there is no doubt that this pandemic, this COVID-19, this has brought about a paradigm shift in the supply, demand, and prices of commodities, especially the food items. I just want to draw your attention to some of the figures, like there is a 4% increase in the meat and poultry production. The eggs, they have become 3 times more expensive, and there is a 14% increase in the retail fresh produce volume sales. And this has happened despite a 42% decline in the total restaurant transactions. This data has been obtained from a UK-based statistical survey, and the data it covers a period from say February till middle of May. Now this situation is perhaps I'm oversimplifying the interpretation, but my point of interest is that probably this situation will prevail for some time just because of number of factors. For example, in India, I think after a long gap, the broiler meat price is soaring up. The egg prices are quite stable. The raw material prices are quite soft, especially if we consider the price of corn right now. So after a long time, the broiler farmers and the layer farmers, they are feeling some sort of a comfort. A level of comfort has come up in their mind. I'm not sure that how long this comfort will continue, because there are so many factors present in controlling the market, in controlling the prices of the products, and controlling the prices of raw material as well as the commodities. But this is a situation, and this situation, we can consider this situation as a blessings in the form of disguise. Now, there is no doubt that the end pandemic, this COVID-19, it has severely affected almost all the area of a poultry farming operation. It has affected the supply chain operation. It has severely affected the technical services, and the major impact was on the human resources, because the social distancing, the fear psychosis of getting the infection very quickly from others, all these factors that has led to put a good number of workers, including the skilled managers, the skilled laborers, off their duty. And this is going to impact the performance of any operation. And this poultry industry is not an exception to this general rule. Now, this is a crisis moment. We know that this is a crisis moment, and we have to come out of this crisis. So there is no other way but to increase the efficiency of the operation. The efficiency needs to be improved. Efficiency has to be improved, and the enhancement in efficiency should be at all the points of an operation of a poultry business. And the main objective of from now onwards should be to increase the efficiency, to spend least input so that the maximum output can be achieved and the profit can be maximized. Now, one thing which is haunting me right at this moment is that this pandemic may affect the feed quality because of mycotoxin buildup. Now, why I am apprehending this mycotoxin buildup? The question is quite relevant. But if we consider the situation which has been prevailing for the last couple of months or so, and the condition which is prevailing right now, perhaps my apprehension will come true. For example, there was lockdown, there was severe manpower shortage, the transportations were come to a standstill. So there was a possibility that there will be prolonged storage period for the raw materials, prolonged storage period for the feed. The feed and the raw materials are stored in the warehouses, And now these stored raw materials and the feed materials are being released gradually to reach the feed milling plants or to reach the poultry farms. Now at the same time, if we consider the situation, now the new corn has come up. The new corn, as usual, it contains high level of moisture, 15, 16, 17, 18% moisture. Now, this corn, if this corn is not treated properly, not processed properly, or not being handled properly, and being exhausted in a quick succession, there is a huge possibility that this corn will lead to the development of the mycotoxin just because of the mold buildup, and the facility the mold will get out of this environmental condition to turn into mycotoxins. Here, another point is very important. That is the situation which we are going to face for the next 3 or 4 months. This next 3 or 4 months period, this June, July, August till the end of September, this period is considered to be as the monsoon season in India, and this period is characterized by high ambient temperature, high relative humidity, both high relative temperature, high temperature and humidity both, and this is a situation when a lot of problems, for example, wet litter becomes a major issue. The situation is quite simple. The situation is quite explainable, I should say. Why it is quite simply explainable? Because of the high ambient temperature, the birds will try to get rid of the extra heat. They will start panting. But unfortunately, because of the high relative humidity, the evaporative heat loss by means of panting will not take place properly. So just to get rid of the extra heat, what the birds will do, the birds will simply move to the drinker. They will drink a lot of water just to get rid of, just to get them cooled down. Now, excessive drinking of water is not really good always, because that stretches the small intestine, that leads some sort of negative impulses to the satiety center, and that depresses the feed intake. At the same time, what happens, that this water passes very easily. It increases the digester transit time, and as a result, food passage. It reduces the digester transit time, and it increases the digester passage rate. As a result, what happens there? You can observe a huge amount of feed passage and wet litter. So the problem, what we should face now, is that high ambient temperature, high relative humidity, and at the same time, this wet litter problem. Now, one of the ways to reduce this wet litter problem or this stress on the birds is just to reduce the stocking density. But right at this moment, when the farmers are just enjoying some amount of profit, advising them to reduce the stocking density should not be a good one, a good option. So stocking density reduction is not possible right at this moment. But we know that wet litter problem is a big problem, which ultimately leads to clinical or subclinical coccidiosis or dysbacteriosis and necrotic enteritis. So ultimately, these are the points which must be kept in mind in order to maximize the profit from a broiler farming operation. So how to deal with this situation? The situation is difficult, I understand, but there are ways out. For example, if the ventilation can be improved by any means, that will give some sort of chill effect on the bird. Now, there in closed housing system, absolutely there is no problem except for the humidity in the tropical climatic condition. But in the open housing system, the ventilation is a point that needs to be kept in mind. The ventilation can be improved by means of some sort of stirring fans, which can put the air, which can force the air at certain angles on the bird surface, and that can take away some amount of fit and humid air from the bird surface, and the bird will feel comfortable. So that will increase the feed intake, and finally that ultimately reduce the wet litter incidences of the wet litter. At the same time, there should be some dietary intervention. The dietary intervention should be directed in such a way that some non-specific diarrhea can be prevented. There are a lot of additives available in the market. These additives can be used, and these additives can effectively reduce the non-specific diarrhea and can reduce the problem of wet litter to a great extent. Now, this mycotoxin, as I'm apprehending that mycotoxin will be a threat. Indeed, it will be a threat to to a great extent, and there will be multiple effects for these toxins. Now, generally, there are huge number of mycotoxins which can be present in a feedstuff. I'm just showing here, say, 5 or 6 mycotoxins. Now, these 5 or 6 mycotoxins, these are quite important. For example, aflatoxin is there, ochratoxin, petulin, fumonisin, blah, blah, blah. Now, these mycotoxins, they do have a number of effects. We can see the hepatotoxic effect very easily. We can see the nephrotoxic effect also very easily. The kidney becomes swollen, the kidney becomes hyperemic, the liver gets pale and enlarged. So whenever we do postmortem, we can see that, yes, this may be the chances of the toxicity in the birds. But one effect generally which we cannot see directly in our naked eyes, that is the immunotoxic effect of the mycotoxins. And this is quite interesting that all the mycotoxins I have mentioned here, and frankly speaking, all other mycotoxins also, they have huge immunotoxic effect. That means they reduce the immune responses of the bird. And more interestingly, all these mycotoxins, they have interactions with each other. For example, aflatoxin is having interaction with T2, T2 is having interaction with DON, fumonisin is having interaction with ochratoxin, and so on and so forth. So there will be a sort of cascade of actions, and all the cascade of actions ultimately will impact the immune function of the bird. So if there is even a chronic depression in the immunity, that may lead to huge impact on the performance of the bird. And this problem is going to be particularly important for the laying hens as well as the parent stock, because these hens are reared for a long period of time. For example, the laying hens, they are being reared for 100 weeks almost. And if these hens are consuming even a low quantity of toxin for, say, around 30-40 weeks, we can't even imagine that what should be the consequences, what may be the consequences. Okay, because these are all cumulative effects. These toxins are metabolized, the metabolized may get excreted, and some metabolized may get accumulated in the body, and finally whatever we are going to get at the end of, say, the feeding period is accumulation of the toxin. So longer the exposure time, the greater will be the risk. Now, generally, we judge the quality of a grain, or particularly for corn, on the basis of the quantity of aflatoxin which is present there. But we overlook 2 very important mycotoxins. One is DON and another one is fumonisin, because their effects are not really visible in the naked eyes. But these 2 mycotoxins, when they are present together, they may severely impact the immune system. And the impact is far more if the baby chicks, less than 7 days of age, they are exposed to even a low level of mycotoxin, especially these DON and fumonisin. The main impact is on the gastrointestinal tract function and the immune system. So finally, we can say from here that if we are not very much sure about the quality of the mycotoxin in terms of the quality of the grains in terms of mycotoxin, so we are exposing our stock to a huge risk. So this is a regular phenomena, because it is not that the monsoon month is coming this time only, the hot and humid climatic condition is coming this time only. This is a regular phenomena. We are accustomed to all these incidences from the very beginning of our business operations. But the point is that since there was some disruption in the movements, and there will be some disruptions in the workforce just because of this social distancing norms and all these things, so there is a possibility that the raw materials, the feedstuffs will get accumulated, will get piled up in the warehouses, will not be consumed in a rapid pace. The entrepreneur may purchase a big amount of raw materials for a long period of time. So my intention is just to remind you that, well, these are all well accepted steps. Anybody can do this one. Anybody can do this one just to take the price advantage. But the point is, there should be proper precaution. The precaution must be there so that the mold growth can be prevented. The fungus tests are performed on a regular basis, and whenever there is an incremental level of fungus found in the raw materials, there should be some precautionary measure. For example, dilution of the infested corn with some fresh corn, or like that. Anyway, that's a different part of the story. Now, what I was saying that mycotoxins, they primarily affect the gut functions. This is interesting, that the mycotoxins, they reduce nutrient absorption, they hamper with the barrier function. Barrier function means that if we consider these cells of the intestinal mucosa, so these cells are bound together by means of some tight junction proteins, which work as a cementing substance. So the mycotoxins, they specifically work on those tight junction proteins. They eat on these tight junction proteins, and as a result of this, the barrier function is disrupted to a great extent. What happens? What is the consequence? If the barrier function is disrupted, then if any mild infection is also present there in the luminal side of the small intestine, if, say, for example, a very mild load of pathogenic E. coli is there, so these pathogenic E. coli and their metabolites will pass into the systemic circulation, and accumulation of these pathogenic metabolites will lead to cyst septicemia in the near future. So this is one of the grave consequences of mycotoxin infestation of raw materials and feed. The nutrient absorption. Most of the mycotoxins, they impact the nutrient absorption in a negative manner. So the birds do not get enough of nutrient if mycotoxin is there in the feed. And one of the consequences of the mycotoxin infestation is a reduced feed intake. Now, there are some effects on the immune functions of the mycotoxin. They lead to cell proliferation. That means just as a defense mechanism, the mucosal membrane that starts proliferating. And this cell proliferation is coupled with an enhanced synthesis of the cytokines and the immunoglobulins. So cell proliferation, cytokine and immunoglobulin synthesis, these are all defense mechanisms, and these defense mechanisms, they eat up a huge quantity of the nutrients which is being consumed by the bird. So on one hand, the birds are not getting enough of nutrients just because of a direct effect of mycotoxin, and on the other hand, the bird is losing a lot of nutrients just as an immune defense mechanism. So that means here also negative balance and here also negative balance, and this is coupled with a disrupted barrier function. So that means the bird is exposed to a lot of pathogenic load. So that is going to impact the bird's performance to a huge extent. And this condition is going to be aggravated during the hot summer months because there is possibility of lipid peroxidation unless and until some specific dietary strategy is taken to control or just to keep the lipid peroxidation of the mucosal cells to keep under control. My point of interest here is to maintain the health of the small intestine of the birds during the coming months so that barrier function is maintained, nutrient absorption is maintained to a proper level, and the immunity is not exacerbated in any way. So if we conclude this particular part of how this mycotoxin load is going to impact the bird's performance during this post-COVID era, we should say that a couple of points are very much important. Raw material selection and raw material purchase must confirm the quality norms. Because that means there should be a defined norm for the toxins and the molds as well as for the moisture. And if the quality norm is not maintained, in that case, there should be direct rejection. And at the same time, the breach in the biosecurity cannot be encouraged in any way. Because if there is any sort of breach in biosecurity, that is inviting a pathogen into the broiler house or into the layer house. Now, these are the 2 points which may be affected to some extent just because of this social distancing norms as well as shortage of the workforces. However, these are the areas where all the entrepreneurs should work on and should come up with some strategies by which these 2 factors can be taken due care of. Now it's the time for polling, Dr. Rana.
Yes. Thank you so much, sir, for the first segment where we have clearly understood the possible problems associated with a rattled supply chain leading to an impending mycotoxin problem, and how the gut health of the birds can get affected. Thank you so much for that, sir. Before going into the next segment, I would like to invite the attention of the audience towards a poll question. On the right side of your screen, you can see a poll question. So the question is, do you think a healthy start of chick's life will yield good productivity cycle? You can answer yes, no, or not sure. You can take 10 seconds of your time. And by the time this poll question is answered, we can go back to Dr. Sudipto Haldar's presentation, and we can continue from there. Great. Sir, I think there is almost a one-sided response, around close to, it is still counting, but 5 people think that there is a healthy start of a chick's life will have a good positive impact on the productivity. There are 3% of the people who are saying not sure. So that will give you some insights, sir, about how the audience feels. Over to you, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, this early chick management is always crucial. Early chick management, I'm talking about a comprehensive approach for this early chick management. It basically starts from the hatchery. To be honest, it basically starts from the parent farm, where from the eggs are being transported to the hatchery, and then in the hatchery there are a lot of steps where the eggs are being handled properly, and finally the eggs are stored, eggs are set in the incubator, and the chicks come out. So basically, if we consider a layer farming operation or a broiler farming operation, we see it from the hatchery, but in reality it starts much before in the parent stock itself. A lot of factors are involved there. I don't want to discuss all the factors because that will take a long time. But anyway, in a very brief manner, I should say that how this pandemic and the associated disruptions in workforces, associated disruption in availability of the transports, everything that may impact the quality of the chicks. I'm not considering the quality of the eggs. I assume that the eggs received in the hatchery are properly maintained. They are properly incubated, and finally the chicks, healthy chicks are coming out. The point is that just because of number of factors, these factors may be less demand in the market. These factors may be because of the lack of skilled workforce, or maybe due to shortage of the manpower. There is a possibility that after the hatching, the chicks are held in the hatchery for a longer period of time. Longer period means unusually longer. It is difficult to define that what is that unusually longer period, but this is somewhat longer period than what we experience under natural conditions. The main problem which is going to happen during this particular period of time is dehydration. The dehydration will take place, will set in the chicks if the chicks are held in the hatchery for an unusually long period of time, because the chicks have very limited water reserves. The problem is if a chick arrives a farm under dehydrated condition, it cannot give its full genetic potential. That is the main problem. To have a good start, the chicks must not be dehydrated. The point is, in situations where the environmental temperature is more than 40 degrees Celsius, relative humidity is very high, in that case, the baby chicks, they also pant, and they lose a huge amount of water just because of panting. The point is, this dehydration becomes so severe that within 24 hours after hatching, the chicks may lose around 5 to 10 grams of body weight. Generally, the rate of loss in body weight is around 2 grams, if I'm not wrong. But in severe cases of dehydration, up to 10 grams of body weight can be lost by a chick under this high temperature and humidity. So the point is that chicks must be weighed immediately after they reach the farm. There should be some idea about what was the weight of the chicks at the time of the hatching, and if it is found that the weight loss is too high, then we should think that, well, dehydration has taken place. And if the chick is dehydrated, to be honest, there is least possibility that they can be revived properly to get rid of this problem absolutely to the fullest extent. Now there is another point that we observed, that leg abnormalities. So these are very common findings. These are very common findings we always observe. Generally, we overlook, or unless and until these numbers reach a fairly high amount, we love to ignore these problems. We generally take some sort of temporary measures. For example, if these conditions are observed, splayed leg conditions are observed, we generally think that, well, this might be due to some sort of calcium phosphorus imbalance. There must be some vitamin imbalance and mineral imbalance. We treat the situation by means of some oral calcium phosphorus solutions or vitamin mineral solutions, etc., etc. And we see that, yes, the condition is rectified. Honestly speaking, if this type of condition is observed, say, within 48, 72, or 96 hours of age after the hatching, then this can hardly be related to nutritional issues. They can hardly be related to nutritional issues, because the nutritional imbalance is most unlikely to take place during this early phase of life. The chicks are receiving their nutrients from the yolk itself up to 48 hours, and the yolk is the most balanced feed for the chick. So how the nutritional imbalance will take place? The most common reason for these split leg conditions should be some sort of injury to the legs at the time of handling, at the time of transportation, or at the time of handling at the farm, or there must be some problem with the floor of the brooding house. We generally use newspaper, we generally use some sort of plastic sheets or something like that for the brooding purpose. But practically, these plastic sheets or the newspaper, they do not provide enough of static friction for the legs of the baby chick, as a result of which the legs slip out and they suffer from this type of conditions. And if this condition occurs, then even in bigger chickens also, that will be there. And since we are talking about increasing the efficiency of operation, so these are very petty points, very, very minute points we love to ignore, but we need to take note of these points, because if these points are not being taken care of, then that will give a poor start. And if a poor start is there, we are not going to get the desired level of performance at the time of the harvest. Another point is, the sooner the chicks receive the feed, the better it is. This is very much important. This is very much important. Why this is important? You know that the yolk, we have an idea that yes, the yolk is there. So yolk can provide sufficient quantities of energy and protein to the baby chick, and so they can survive. Yes, true, they can survive, and they do survive on the nutrients which are present in yolk. But these nutrients which are present in yolk, that is not for the growth and development of the chicks. These nutrients or these biomolecules, they are rather intended for transferring the passive immunity to the bird, which is coming from the hen. So if this yolk, instead of providing or transferring the passive immunity to the baby chick, if it is being wasted for the growth and development of the bird, does it make any sense? It doesn't make any sense. To be honest, it doesn't make any sense. Moreover, the nutrients which are present in the yolk, that doesn't support the growth of the intestine, and that doesn't support the growth of the immune organs. But this is very much necessary. The growth of the small intestine and the growth of the immune organs, this is very important, and that must take place within a very short period of time. So the primary objective should be to provide the chicks with feed as quickly as possible. If we expect that there will be some sort of unwarranted delay in transferring the chicks from the hatchery to the farm, steps should be taken. Lot of products are available nowadays. Some jelly-like substances are there which are rich in nutrients, which are rich in some amount of water. So those should be provided in the chick boxes so that the chicks can survive. Chicks can get some nutrients at least during the time of the transit. And as soon as they reach the farm, just give, say, a couple of hours for them to be adjusted and offer the feed. So the sooner we give the feed to the birds, the chicks, the yolk is absorbed quickly, and maternal antibody is transferred to the chick, and we can get a good start. And if we get a good start, there is no confusion that if we can maintain this tempo, then we can get a good finish as well. Just have a look at these two pictures. So here, this is a condition when the chicks were given access to feed immediately after hatching. So these are nothing but the villi present on the mucosal surface of the small intestine. So these are the villi, and these are the villi, the disposition of the villi for a chick which was given access to feed immediately after hatching. And this is the same villi for the chicks which were given access to feed 48 hours after hatching. That means these chicks kept fasted for 48 hours after hatching. Just see the difference in the disposition and distribution of the villi in these two chicks. Here the villi are so compact, so closely situated, and here the villi are sparsely distributed. There are big gaps between the villi. So we can expect that the total amount of the absorptive surface area that will be much more in this case than that in this case. And it has been observed that if the amount of feed offered is delayed by 48 hours, there may be approximately 8 to 9% drop in the final body weight. That means if I'm going to get, say, around 2.5 kilograms, I'm going to get at least 200 to 300 grams less body weight at the end, which is not at all desirable, at least during this period when we are talking about increasing the efficiency at every step of production. So this is a very crucial step, and this needs to be kept in mind very meticulously. Now, the selection of the diet and selection of the raw material, that is going to play a big role in getting a good start. Let's consider a very basic raw material, corn. We generally consider corn as the best of the raw materials, which can provide good amount of energy, fairly good amount of energy. Rather, it is considered to be the main source of energy for chicken diet. And where from this energy comes? In case of corn, the energy comes from the starch present in corn. The point is, the starch content is quite constant in corn, but not the starch digestibility. The starch digestibility is quite variable. It varies from 25% to 56%. This is a big variation. Similarly, if we consider the protein meals, keeping aside the soybean meal, the variability in digestibility of protein is quite high. For example, fish meal, the variability in protein digestibility is more than, say, 10%. For, say, poultry meal, it is more than 6%. That means if the digestibility varies in this way, if I expect the digestibility of, say, fish meal will be around 80%, it may be as high as 90%, or it may be as low as 70%. These variations are not at all good. We need to be we need to program the diet in such a way that it contains highly digestible raw materials, so that the chicks can digest them easily. They can extract the maximum amount of the nutrients from the given feed, so that they get the maximum benefit out of that. But if these variations take place, if I get a consignment of corn where the digestibility of starch is at the bottom level, or if I get a consignment of, say, fish meal, I use fish meal and I get a consignment of fish meal where the variability in protein digestibility is so high, then my entire dietary regime is going to be impacted a lot. I'm not going to supply the desired quantity of digestible nutrients to my chicks. And if that is the case, then I should not expect a good performance, a good start from the baby chicks. Fortunately, we have a number of good enzymes. We have the phytases, we have the carbohydrate degrading enzymes, we have the protease, we have NSPase, and blah, blah, blah. So these enzymes should be used in a very strategic manner. The main objective of using this enzyme is to reduce these variations. Whatever variations we are observing here, these variations can be handled nicely by the enzyme application. One of the problems of these variations or the lower digestibility is the feed or the nutrients, they pass undigested to the hindgut. And if the nutrients pass undigested to the hindgut, they become the substrate for the bacterial growth. There are a good number of bacteria present in the ileum and cecum, and a good number of these bacterial population, they are potential pathogens. If by means of supplying this undigested nutrient to them, we facilitate their growth, so there is a possibility that the potential pathogens will start proliferating, and finally they will impact the intestinal health of the birds. Now, since we are discussing about the impending threat of mycotoxins, the likely problems we are going to face during this hot and humid climatic condition, if these are coupled with lower digestibility feed, in that case, the situation will be further confounded. So the objective of the dietary regimen should be, or you can say that the objective of the enzyme application should be to shift the site of digestion from the hindgut to the anterior gut. If the site of digestion can be handled, can be shifted from the hindgut to the anterior gut, in that case, what will happen? The bacteria will not get enough of substrate for their proliferation. They will be starved out, and finally, the microbial dynamics will shift from dysbiosis to eubiosis. So that will be the primary objective for any feeding regimen during any period of time, and especially during this period when we are talking about increasing the efficiency to a good extent. Now again, there is time for polling, Dr. Rana.
Thank you, sir, for the second segment of the presentation. Sir has very well laid out one of the most crucial points in poultry farming, and that has become even more crucial in this COVID-19 situation, the early life of the chicks. So before going to the next segment, sir, I would like to request the attention of the audience towards the poll questions. So this is related to the next segment that we'll be talking about. The question is, what is your choice of additives used for water sanitation? Any medications that you use for improving the water quality? What would be your choice? The choices are hydrogen peroxide, acidifiers, chlorine tablets, or any others. You'll have 10 seconds to answer this poll question, and once it is answered, we will quickly go back to the next segment of Dr. Sudipto Haldar's presentation. Okay, so we are getting some interesting insights. Around 57% of our audience feels they choose chlorine tablets. 31% of the people believe that they go for acidifiers, and around 11% of that they will go for hydrogen peroxide. So that's excellent.
Yes, that's quite interesting polling.
Yes.
So let's discuss something about this situation, and let's see that if we can find the answers in the subsequent slides. And if the audience doesn't get the answers, then anyway, we are ready. We are here to discuss about these points. Okay. So let's move there. So basically, this water quality is always very much critical for a good performance to achieve. Unfortunately, this is perhaps misunderstood, less understood, or even sometimes neglected. The point is, we really sometimes grope in darkness about how to judge the quality of water. What are the parameters? What are the specific, for example, for raw materials, we set some sort of parameters like this should contain this much of protein, this should contain not more than this much of moisture, the fiber content should be like that, blah, blah, blah. So many parameters are fixed for the raw materials. For the finished goods also, we fix a minimum amount of protein, calcium, phosphorus, and so on and so forth. But what about water? But water is very much critical, very much crucial for a good start, for a good sustenance of any flock. Unfortunately, we sometimes get confused, and many a times this happens that we have to take decisions out of that ignorance. And if we consider that this pandemic will create some sort of pressure on the entrepreneur to put some of his workforces off the duty on a regular basis, or even to shed off his workforce, and he needs to run his show with some sort of semi-skilled or unskilled workers, the problem associated with water quality is going to be aggravated far more. Now let's have some discussion about how to consider water as a safe one. Anyway, so these are the physical parameters basically. So there are a lot of parameters, and one of the parameters is very much important. That is the pH of the water. So this is for the general water, for the drinking purpose. General water for drinking purpose, the pH should be like that only. There should not be certain amount of zinc. There should not be certain amount of lead, and there are so many parameters anyway. So these parameters are available anywhere, and we can judge the quality of water based on the analytical report of water, and can grade the water for safe or unsafe for drinking. Now, most important point so far as the poultry farming is concerned is the bacteriological quality of water. The bacteriological quality is extremely important. So if we discuss the bacteriological quality, there should not be any coliforms. The coliform count should be 0. The aerobic plate counts, that means the total number of the bacteria, aerobic bacteria, which can proliferate in presence of air, that should be also 0. Yes, we can accept, say, up to 1,000 colony forming units per ml of drinking water. We can accept up to 50 colony forming units for total coliforms, but they are not desirable. And there should be 0 E. coli, there should be 0 Pseudomonas, and there must not be any fecal coliform, because these 3 bacteria, they are highly pathogenic. They have high potency to create a huge pathogenicity if they enter into the bird's system. So these are the bacteriological parameters, and these bacteriological parameters should form a guide for any poultry farming operation. Now, let us consider that how to actually judge the quality of water. Now see, there are 3 farms, A, B, and C. Now at source, farm A had total number of bacteria 2,700, and at the end of the line, it was 27,000 almost. That means it was at the source, and this is at the end of the line. That means the birds are consuming this much of bacteria when they consume 1 ml of drinking water. Now consider farm C. It has an excellent source. There is no bacteria present at source, but we find almost 5 million bacteria at the end of the line. So if we compare source A and source C, definitely source A is better than source C, because source C supplies the bacteria to the birds, comparatively more number of bacteria to the birds. So this is not at all a desirable condition. That means there is a severe problem with the water management system. Either there is a problem with the drinker, or there may be problems with the over tank or the pipeline. There or maybe at the nipple, whatever it may be. But the problem is there, and this problem has led to such a huge number of bacterial built-up at the end of the line. And this is an area actually which may suffer if there is shallow knowledge in the minds of the worker about the quality of the water, if there is less workforce involved, because there will be time required for cleaning of the drinking lines and the drinkers on a regular basis. And these are the areas where every entrepreneur should pay attention to from now onwards. Because when there were plenty of workers, then also we could see that the drinker is not managed properly. We could find that the litters, the fecal materials are there on, in the drinkers, or the nipple line is not really clean to that extent. So if this is the situation prevailing when there was ample and there was no paucity of workforces, then during the period when we expect some shortage in manpower, some shortage in the skilled laborers, these problems must not repeat itself in order to increase the efficiency of production. Now this is the situation actually which is causing this huge number of bacterial built-up at the end of the nipple line. This is the development of the biofilms. So these biofilms, actually, these are nothing but some sort of, the slimy materials. They develop inside the pipeline, and there are certain materials, for example, PVC, which promote the entrapment of the pathogens. These pathogens, they are mostly Pseudomonas. Sometimes there will be Campylobacter, and many other bacteria. And this becomes a situation when the cross-section of a pipeline is seen. So if we look at this, this has lot of impacts. For example, if this is the diameter, original diameter, so the original diameter has been reduced to this one. And if we consider that this is going to be the situation prevailing in the next few months when the temperature is very high, humidity is very high, the birds need water. So the birds will not get enough of water as it should just because of a clogged pipeline. And whatever water the birds are getting, that water is containing or loaded with good number of bacteria. So these are the bacteria which may be present in these biofilms. These are the bacteria. These bacteria, they are the causes of, say, colibacillosis, avian cholera, fall typhoid, fall cholera, even viral diseases like Newcastle disease, infectious bronchitis, so and so forth. And just have a look at the route of infection. The route of infection is mostly the fecal-oral contamination. This fecal-oral contamination is the greatest root cause for spreading of these bacterial diseases. And if bacterial diseases are there just because of mismanagement of the water resource or mismanagement of watering system of the birds, this is going to be very unfortunate, and this is going to be impact the performance of the flock to a huge extent. Because we have already the threat for the mycotoxin, we have already the threat for the hot and humid climatic condition, the intestine is likely to be damaged to a great extent, and if we cannot check the quality of the water, if we cannot control the quality of the water, the impending dysbiosis cannot be prevented. And if there is any shift in the that microbial dynamics from eubiosis to dysbiosis, the situation is not going to be good enough, and it should go out of control. So one of the ways is to shock the water reservoirs. Shocking water reservoir is very simple. That means when the baby chicks are being placed at the beginning of their life, when the baby chicks are placed, the water reservoir should be closed. The entire system should be closed. It should be filled up with some organic acids and chlorine at least for 1.5 hours. Then it should be poured with hydrogen peroxide, and then the solutions should stand in the over a tank or the main tank and in the pipelines for at least 24 to 48 hours, and then it should be flushed. This is one of the ways which can be done with the help of, say, reduced workforces, even with unskilled workforces, which can be done and which can take care of the quality of the drinking water, at least for a broiler farm, from around 30-35 days. But at the same time, there should be some sort of disinfectant to be present in the main source continuously. But this practice cannot be done in a parent stock farm or in a laying hen farm. So this is a bit difficult to implement in the laying farms or parent stock farms, where whatever operation needs to be done, that should be done in the night only, when the birds are off fed, when the birds are rather sleeping. Then only some short scale, some sort of a short scale measurement can be taken just to clean the pipelines. Well, another time for poll here now.
Thank you, sir, for throwing your insights on one of the most important nutrient and often forgotten nutrient, water.
Right.
And also thank you for showing us how to take care of the hidden danger, which is biofilms. Now, before going to the next segment, I would like to invite your attention towards the poll question. So you can see one question which is related to the next segment. So do you take care of or advise drinker height and position time to time based on different age groups of birds? As we know, even if we provide good quality water, that drinker height and position is very important. So do you advise the change in the height or position? So the answers that you can give are yes, no, or not sure. We can have 10 seconds to answer this, and we can quickly go back to Dr. Sudipto Haldar's presentation. Sir, again, it is more or less unanimous that everyone,
Mhm.
mostly 96% of the people are, they advise or they take care of the drinker height and position. A 4% of the audience are not sure about it. So that was our cue for the next segment, sir.
So anyway, so since this is an unanimous decision that yes, the drinker management and the feeder management is mandatory, so my job becomes easier. But anyway, there are some basic points which actually basically what I'm trying to do is just to make people reminded of the basic duties which may be overlooked, since we are trying to emphasize upon all the points which can contribute to increasing the efficiency of the operation. For example, these are the distribution of feed in the feeder when the baby chick arrives at the farm. The sparse distribution of feed. This sparse distribution of feed is not going to help the birds. The birds should have ad libitum access to feed. The ad libitum access to feed, that is very much important so that the birds can get the feed immediately as and when it wants. This is another situation where the lighting is so much inadequate at the very beginning, that the birds will not be interested, will not feel interested to go to the feeder and consume the feed. Basically, the thumb rule is that there should be at least 5 lux of uh, light intensity, which should be present at the level of the feeder. So that intensity of light is sufficient to attract the, or you can say that keep the chicks active, and so that they move to the feeder and they consume the feed. One point is to be kept in mind, that unless there is feed intake, we cannot expect good body weight. We cannot expect the desired level of genetic potential from the bird. So by hook or crook, we need to ensure that the birds consume sufficient quantity of feed. So that is for sure, and that needs to be taken care of by everybody. See, within 7 days, the body weight should be 4 times of the initial body weight. That means if the chick is having a 40 grams of body weight, by 7 days it should be 160 grams. And to achieve that one, we need to ensure that the chicks have ad access to feed. So this is an example that how the feed should be given for the chicks to consume. This is an ideal distribution of the feeder when the chicks are there, when the chicks are arriving in the broiler house. So these are the basic points, very basic points. We generally follow, but sometimes we forget, sometimes we overlook, and this and overlooking this very petty points leads to a good loss of performance at the end. Similarly, this is the drinker management. Drinker management, the height management of the drinker. So improper management may lead to spillage of water. And especially if we are talking about the wet litter condition. This wet litter condition can be exacerbated if the birds have to practice some sort of exercise to reach the drinker, and they spill the water onto the litter material. So finally, the objective will be to reduce the wet litter by any means, and for that, and a proper drinker management is extremely necessary. Look at these drinkers, the quality of the drinkers. These are not of good quality. If we consider the routes of the bacterial infection, mostly they are showing that there will be fecal-oral contamination for most of the bacterial infections. So if the fecal-oral contamination route is there, and if this is the condition of the drinker, so we cannot guarantee that the fecal-oral contamination of water of infections will not take place. Despite usage of any antibiotic, any water sanitizer, or any other measure that can that are generally aimed to improve the quality of water. So this is a very basic point. And that should be kept in mind. But this is going to be a problem again when there is shortage of workers. There is shortage of workforce, so there will be excuse for the workers who are working in the farm, that since there is no worker, we cannot clean the drinker properly. I don't know that how to sort out this problem, but this is a point that needs to be kept in mind everywhere, in every broiler farming operation, or even in the layer farming operation, that if the drinker is not managed properly, the quality of water will be spoiled. Whatever good quality we give at the source, the quality the birds receive will not be of optimum one. Now let me conclude gradually that we should not, and this conclusion should be based on certain statistics. Now this COVID-19 pandemic, yes, this was a disaster for everybody. For everybody, this was a disaster. But it may not be that disaster what we are thinking about, especially for us, those who are in the business of human food. We are not into automobiles, we are not into aviation, we are not into hotel and tourism industry directly, but we are into a business which provide food to human beings. And so long human beings are there, the demand for food will be there. So this situation of this COVID-19 pandemic should not be taken as a curse. Rather, we can think if we can take this as a blessings in disguise. For example, it was predicted that by 2023, the compounded annual growth rate for this livestock and poultry industry should be around 4%. And in fact, in 2019, it was almost 3%. Now, during this period, up to say for the first 6 months, there was we can say that this is a lull period. But I'm talking about the global demand. If it is a global demand, and if we consider that 37% of this growth will be originating from the Asia Pacific region, and one of the key drivers will be demand for clean meat. This is going to be a very crucial point for everybody, the demand for clean meat. That means we need a meat which is clean. When a consumer consumes this meat, he will have some sort of satisfaction that yes, I'm consuming something which is not going to put me in front of any risk factor. There will be no risk of antibiotic, there will be no risk of any infection, and whatever I'm going to eat, it is giving me something worthy. So this is the main driving force for this growth, and probably it will not be a very big problem in achieving this growth rate, considering the way we are forwarding now. I'm not sure again that how long this trend will continue, but let us hope for the best one. So the situation is difficult, but we can overcome this situation. Of course, we can overcome this situation. What we need is an extreme awareness about what's happening worldwide, what's happening at the micro level by our side. If we find that yes, say around say 500 meters away there is a farm where there is unusual mortality happening, we should be cautious. We should stop the movement of the workers. We should stop the movement of that vehicles which may visit that farm and my farm. So this awareness is very much needed. At the same time, we should keep ourselves updated about all the latest developments of what's happening around and what may be the predictions, what are the statistics saying about the future growth and the future pattern of growth, etc. And another point which is very much important is just to maximize the profit. A perfect cost calculation of all the business components is needed. We generally overlook number of components. We do not consider that what should be. For example, I'm a manufacturer of feed. I'm an integrator. I'm just preparing the feed. We consider grossly the cost of raw material, the cost of production, the cost of labor, the cost of bags, blah blah blah. But are we really considering that what is the cost of producing a good quality steam, or how much I'm losing by producing a bad quality steam? We generally do not. But this is a very, very, very petty component I'm talking about. But now the time has come that if you want to maximize the profit, if you want to optimize your operation, then all these minute components has to be considered, and they must be summed up in order to finally calculate the target cost of any business operation. Now, we need some extremely alert and technically sound managers at all the key positions. Yes, this is going to be very important because we are going to lose a good number of skilled workers. We may need to run our show with the help of some unskilled or even semi-skilled workers. So we need very, very sound and alert managers at all these positions who will report any observation, any deviation to the higher authority, and the higher authority should report or should take a decision immediately for the immediate implementation of the strategic planning. So this is a very crucial part of the future planning. And of course, finally, we must say no to the compromisation with feed and food safety as well as biosecurity. Because if there is any breach in the food safety and the feed safety norms, and if there is any breach in the biosecurity, we are gone. We are finished. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir. That was a very elaborate presentation from you, covering a range of topics, starting from the impending mycotoxin problems due to the rattle supply chain, leading to gut health problems, then the early chick care, then the water quality, and even the practical tips on the feeder and drinker positions. It's extremely practicable, and it's so elaborate that I feel that it's humanly impossible to grab all the information that you have provided. I'm very sure the audience will keep this recording of this video as a video library in the records. And this can be used again and again, as it's very pertinent information that you have shared, sir. A proof of how good this session has been is evident from the number of questions that we have received, and it's keeping on coming. So as a moderator, I would like to sort out the questions which many people have asked, like as in a percentage. So one major question that had come, which many others have asked also. This was first asked by Dr. Amit Lavanya. The question is, so as we know that during this high ambient temperature and relative humidity, the wet litter problem is encountered, and there is quite a number of mortality happening in farms. So how we can reduce this mortality due to this wet litter problems?
Yes. So actually the answer to this question is distributed in throughout the presentation. In fact, means we need to find out that what is the exact reason for this wet litter. The wet litter is if it is in summer months. If it is in summer months, I think if the question is particularly indicating towards the wet litter problem in the summer months or what?
Yes, sir. Summer and hot humid months.
Summer and hot humid months. Exactly. In the summer and hot humid months, wet litter is going to be a big problem. As I was discussing, that what we call it as a third quarter syndrome,
yes.
Especially in the part of Philippines and Vietnam area. This is a disease, to be honest. Okay, this third quarter syndrome. That what happens? The birds consume a lot of water because they do pant, but they cannot evaporate the heat. So they drink water, and this leads to the wet litter problem. And why mortality happens? This mortality is happening just because of the extreme of the heat stress. Now here, the question is that at what age the mortality is happening? The mortality is expected especially during the later age. If the stocking density is quite high, if the birds are found to be stressed, and you know that if wet litter problem is not rectified properly, so that will lead to even ammonia buildup. If ammonia buildup is there, so there will automatically be irritation on the respiratory tract. So the birds will have some problem in breathing. And if ventilation is improper, there is not enough movement of air in the farm. So these are all clubbed together, So these are all clubbed together, and finally this leads to insufficient oxygen supply to the birds. And if you perform postmortem examinations, in many cases you will find that there will be some sort of cyanosis, or even sometimes a heart gets ruptured, or some symptoms like this. So very difficult to pinpoint the exact reason, but this is sort of that cumulative effect, and probably taking care of all these points should take care of this. As I said, that there should be something in the feed which can control this non-specific diarrhea. So that's one of the factors which can control this wet litter.
Thank you, sir. So there has been some questions which is there in the mind of many people, I believe. There lots of questions have come in the same context. When there is a diarrhea in a poultry farm, how can we differentiate whether it is an infectious or non-infectious? It's quite a practical situation. Is there any way of identifying for a layman also? Is it possible?
It's a very crude method. I'm telling you, very crude method.
Yes.
You take the fecal material in your hand, just squeeze it roughly. Take the feces between your fingers, squeeze it very roughly. Just wash up your hand with running water. Not take the smell. If the smell is there, then it is infection. That smell will remain for at least 3 days. And if there is no smell, the smell goes off as you wash your hand, that is non-infectious in origin. It's a very crude method to understand, but this is, I'm telling you, 100% correct method.
Right.
If there is fish smell, if there is bad smell, and that smell doesn't go off by washing your hands with plain water, that means it's a non-infectious origin, and if the smell is there, it's infection. Very crude method, but it's correct.
Right, so it's a very practicable solution.
Yeah.
I think all our audience can try that. So there has been another.
Use your left hand, because if you use your right hand, you can't take your food.
Very true. So that's another practical solution and an advice. Yes, sir. There is another very pertinent question from Dr. Is there any way to supplement the day-old chicks during extended transit time?
Yeah, there are ways. You know that there are ways. If I come to know that there will be some delay in transit, so nowadays there are so many products available which come in the form of cubes or in the form of jelly, which provides a lot of nutrients, provide a lot of that water. So that is a mandatory, because you know that we sometimes provide that watermelon. What for? Because the bird will get some sort of water, because we are concerned here about the dehydration. We must prevent the dehydration. But if we were expecting delay in reaching the farm, then we should provide some food as well. So there are nowadays products available. So those products can be put in the tick basket. So the birds will simply pick up those products and they will get water as well as nutrients. So that's a very easy method. And that should be practiced, to be honest, especially in this hot and humid summer months. Yeah.
Yes. Sir, again, another practical question from Dr. Boreddy Ashok Reddy. The question is how frequently we should wash pipelines in layer farms. Any time interval for washing, and probably some advice on which disinfectant should be used, especially probably in the light of biofilms, sir.
Honestly speaking, it's really difficult to clean the biofilms in the in the layer farms when the birds are there, because for good cleaning we need at least 24 to 48 hours of holding time. So if this 24 to 48 hours of holding time cannot be given, the biofilms cannot be removed. And practically speaking, in the layer farms, it is really difficult to use that strategy, that shock strategy, what I was talking about. This is possible only in case of broiler farms, but for the layer farms, only the regular disinfection, only the regular cleaning is there. And there are some descaling materials available. I don't remember the names actually. Don't remember the name, but there are some descaling materials available which can be used, because I can remember that in earlier days, means when I was into the direct operation of a laying farm. So we used to keep this material in the overhead tanks in the night time only, just flush it when the hens were sleeping, and then again we used to keep the pipeline ready by morning before the hens start drinking again. So I'm sorry that I cannot provide any accurate guideline in this regard.
Sure, sir. So another one of the practical questions that we usually encounter, this question has been asked by Vijay Kumar. So what is your opinion if we use acidifier and chlorine tablet both? Would this be a better strategy for water sanitation?
Of course, because chlorine tablets, they do not work if the pH is not reduced. For the chlorine tablet to work properly, the pH of water must be below 5. If it remains between 4 to 5, it works the best. So if I add chlorine tablet with pH say around 7, it will not work. So there are two strategies basically. The one strategy is to reduce the total dissolved solids. It should be below 500, and then the pH should be reduced to around 5. Then add chlorine tablet, and then this will work nicely.
Right. So another one of the most frequently asked questions in the current times. This question is from Digvijay Singh. How we can manage gut health without antibiotic growth promoters?
In broilers or layers?
He hasn't mentioned, especially in. So we can take broiler as an example here.
Let's take broiler, because for the layers, we can discuss later on. If we want to manage the broilers without antibiotic growth promoter, see, this is possible if we maintain some basic steps in biosecurity. We need to confirm that what are the roots of infection. The roots of infection are drinking water. The roots of infection may be, the workers who are working there. The roots of infection may be the litter material. And feed should not be considered as a source of infection, because the feed is pelleted and bacterial growth is most unlikely in feed. So if these are the sources of infection, and if we work on these sources, then probably we can control the entry of bacterial infections into the bird system. Now the question comes that if we cannot rule out actually the subclinical infections. For example, if a broiler house is, that dissolved, means after harvesting, we cannot rule out the presence of some remnant of the bacterial species in the house. So for this, the extensive cleaning is necessary. And that these are all non-specific concepts, I understand. But this is true that if we are really serious about rearing the birds without antibiotic, then by taking some very basic biosecurity measures, it is probably possible. Because one point is very important, that the dose level of antibiotic growth promoters that we are using, are they really working? Or is there any sort of, we are using this as a preventive measure, but how efficient they are actually? So these are a lot of, I think that should be a separate discussion.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Sir, due to paucity of time, we will take one last question, sir.
Correct.
And this is also a frequently asked question when we use unconventional feed stuff. This question is from Mr. Anupam Kumar. MBM and leather meal can cause toxicity in birds, as per his practical observation. How to neutralize it in affected birds?
MBM and leather meal, the toxicity will be caused just because of decomposition. If it is decomposed, first of all, leather meal must not be used in broiler chickens or even layer chickens. It is better not to use anything. Better to use something, say sand instead of leather meal. I'm telling you very frankly, this is my frank opinion. Please don't use leather meal. It doesn't make any sense, because its digestibility is just virtually zero. If anybody wants, I can share the digestibility figures as well. So leather meal must be avoided. Better not to use this one. Just to increase the crude protein content, you are inviting a lot of risk. Now coming to MBM, there is a huge possibility that the MBM gets decomposed. So again, you need to take the help of your smell. If you find the smell is there, something unusual smell, the MBM is decomposed. And if it is decomposed, you never know that what is going to be there in the meal. If there are toxins already developed by the bacteria which are present there, you are gone. You cannot prevent the consequences. But there are some prevention. If you go for the decomposition test, that decomposition test can help you in understanding whether the MBM is decomposed or not, and then you can avoid the usage of that particular MBM lot. That is the only way. But if toxicity sets in, there is no other way but to go with that toxicity. There is no other way.
Right. Thank you so much, sir, for your frank opinions, very valuable suggestions. I think we have taken quite a lot of time, both for the session as well as the questions.
Right.
I would like to thank you, sir, from the bottom of my heart to make this program a grand success, which is quite evident with the number of chats, the questions, the audience, interactions. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Ram.
Thank the audience who has come from various parts of the globe, and thank you so much for attending this webinar. I have to apologize for one thing, that since there were a lot of influx of questions, many questions were very pertinent, so we could kind of create a sample of those questions and try to get the answer from our expert. Still, all of your questions, we assure you, all of your questions will be answered through the email which you have provided while registering for this event. If you have any other feedback or any further questions, you can ask our local representatives. We have our country managers in your locations outside India, and our local representatives within India, or you can write to us to raina.r@naturalremedy.com. I will be very happy to receive your feedback as well as questions or any such suggestions from your side, and we will be very happy to answer you back at the earliest. Thank you so much. Have a great day ahead. Thank you.